So now let's do another example. Let's say we have x squared plus 4x minus 12. And I asked you to factor this one out. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a box. Split it in fours. The first term goes in the top left. The last term goes in the bottom right. We start our chart. Now to figure out what goes on this side, we're going to multiply these two together. So negative 12 times x squared is negative 12x squared. So now, what numbers can we multiply to give us negative 12x squared? Well, I can multiply 1x and 12x. I can multiply 3x and 4x. I can multiply 2x and 6x. But if I multiply these numbers, these are all positive 12s. And I know that it needs to be a negative 12. So one of these numbers has to be negative. We'll figure that out in 1 second before we figure out the negative part. But we know all of these numbers could multiply to be 12. So on this side, we're going to take that middle term from our equation and write it on this side. Out of all of these numbers we wrote down, which ones can add to give us 4x? The difference between 1 and 12 is 11. Is that going to ever be 4? No. So I just cross it out. I know that that's not going to be 4x. Here, the difference between 3 and 4. Is that 4? No. But here, the difference between 2 and 6. Is that 4? Yes. But look here. If we know that this has to be a negative 12, one of these numbers has to be negative, right? If I need to add it to equal 4x, would I put the 2 as negative? Or would I put the 6 as negative? Let's see. If the 2 is negative, it would be 6x minus 2x. 6 minus 2 is 4x. If the 6 was negative, it would be a negative 4x. Do we need a positive or a negative 4? We need a positive 4, so the 2 has to be negative. So I'm going to make the 2 negative, and I'm going to show that this 6 minus 2 is equal to the 4x. 6 times negative 2 is equal to negative 12x. So that two numbers works. And now I'm going to plug these into my table. These two numbers are what goes into the blanks. I'm going to write the 6x here and the 2x here. Now, what's the greatest common factor between 6x and 12? 6. 6 goes into both of those numbers. Now, what can I multiply 6 by to get 6x? X. Because x times 6 is 6x. What can I multiply 6 by to get negative 12? Negative 2. Because negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. What can I multiply x by to get x squared? X. So all I'm doing is working backwards. What can I multiply this number by to get negative 12? That has to be a negative 2. What can I multiply x by to get x squared? X. What do I multiply 6 by to get 6x? X. So you're using the inside to fill out the outside. So let's write our final answer. It looks like x plus 6, because that's a positive 6, and x minus 2. Always double check your work. X plus 6 goes on top, x minus 2 goes on the side. Then you write out your terms. Combine the like terms. And you double check to make sure that your answer matches the original equation. One more example. Let's do 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. Same thing. We've started the same way on each problem. So by this time, you should sort of know what's going on. We split our box into fours. What do we do next?
You put the 2x squared in the first spot.
2x squared goes in the top left. 12 goes in the bottom right. Good. Then we start our chart. What do I do with these two?
You put the 2x squared on the left.
How do I know what goes right here? What do I have to do with these two numbers? Multiply them. Good. 2x squared times 12. 2 times 12 is 24. Okay? So now I'm looking. What numbers can I multiply to get 2x squared? 24x squared. So what gives me 24? 1 and 24. 2 and 12. 3 and 8. 4 and 6. How do I know what goes on this side? Where do I get that number from? From the middle. Good. So I'm taking it straight from the middle. Now, out of those numbers that we just wrote down, which of these numbers has a difference of 11? Or which one of these numbers can I add or subtract together to get 11?
3x times 8.
Good. The difference between these two is way more than 11. The difference between these two is only 10. The difference between these two.
11.
If we added these two together, we would get 11x. If we multiply them together, we get 24x squared. So they both match, which is good. So now I'm going to take these numbers and I'm going to fill in my table. Now here's where the important thing comes from. I told you it does matter where you put the actual numbers. Okay, I'm not just going to randomly place them over there. And there's a reason for that. If I were to put the 3x here and put the 8x here, I know it's kind of hard to see, sorry. But if we were looking for a greatest common factor between 2 and 3, is there a greatest common factor between 2 and 3?
No.
No. That's why it does matter where you put the numbers. I'm not going to put the 3x here because there is no greatest common factor between the 2 and 3. But if I write it the other way, if I switch those two numbers and I put the 3x here and the 8x here, is there a common factor between 3 and 12? Yes. What is that? 3. Jesus. Okay. So 3. Now, work backwards. What can I multiply 3 by to get 3x? X. What can I multiply 3 by to get 12? 4. Now, if I have 4 here, what do I multiply?